let's see. Can I gamble? I can gamble.
You know what? You know what? I'm gonna send you to hell. Explore the Subaru
Whoa! Okay. Oh my fucking god!
Let's go.
This video is very normal, I swear. $1,173. That is how much money I've spent during my 3-year-long playthrough of Genshin Impact. Now, why am I telling y'all something that you probably wouldn't have been able to waterboard out of most people? No, I'm being completely serious. I don't even think the Avengers could have gotten that information out of me at one point. In addition to my 727-hour-long playtime, it's to prove that I have had a escalated level of investment when it comes to this game. As well, I wanted to prove that I know what I'm talking about when it comes to the gripes that I have with this game, as well as the company Hoyoverse, or MiHoYo as it's probably more well known by general audiences. I would also like to make it very clear that this is not the type of video where the funny YouTube person on the screen with a forced monotone voice points at the low-hanging fruit and goes, "Look guys, look at the low-hanging fruit. Isn't it stupid and cringe?" without actually critiquing the work in question and just calling it a day. But I should also state that this isn't a video where I go, actually, you're wrong about Genshin, and it's actually really good and well written, and you're all just secretly too stupid to understand its brilliance. Because that's wrong. I think anyone who's played the game can tell you that Genshin's beginning is pretty lackluster. I think that they were more so trying to introduce you to the world and the game's mechanics rather than the actual story. But that's still no excuse for the story to be fucking lame, you know what I mean? You and your brother are doing this like interdimensional travel shit only to get stopped by the most aggressive airport security in the world. Like, damn, you really do not want these people on that damn plane. Apologies, but we cannot fit you on this plane. I'm going to have to ask you to leave. Oh, hell nah, bro. I paid $400 for this flight. I'm getting on that damn plane. Well, too bad neither of them got hands. 'Tis tragic. Shit, they must have been flying Spirit Airlines. Shit wouldn't happen to me though. The only issue with this opener is that it leaves a lot to be desired. Like, sure, like the reveal is cool, but I feel like afterwards it's just kind of like, oh, look, main character Sama, look at this grand new world that you have to explore, and I'm your companion, and I also know everything about this place, but I act like I'd never seen the Statue of the Seven before. And also, you've been here for a couple of days, but you've never explored anything, and you've also just kind of been here the whole time. And you're also fishing, so like, what is there, like what do you mean you haven't explored anything? So then like the main character like touches the Statue of the Seven that I was literally just talking about earlier and gets some superpowers or whatever. And then they catch a rat conversing with the ops. Oh, look, protagonist Chan, it's your plot armor powers. Is that a fucking dragon? That's not important right now. At least for right now. You meet this girl named Amber, and she takes you to this place called Mondstadt City. Oh yeah, by the way, the region you're in is called Mondstadt. Mondstadt is the nation of freedom, love, passion, and literature. And when I say freedom, I literally mean like freedom. Like, do whatever the hell you want as long as you don't get anyone killed kind of freedom. Mondstadt barely has a government. They have like people who keep the peace. But it's not in the same way in like a But it's not in the same way as
Stratocracy.
In the same way a stratocracy would do it. It's just slightly different. In fact, I was literally serious when I meant literally you could actually just do straight up anything you want here as long as you don't get someone killed. And I think this is where a lot of the issues with Hoyoverse's storytelling ability comes into play. And I know this is a problem because by the simple fact that I can't remember a goddamn thing that happened in Mondstadt. We learned about the Abyss, which is basically this entire country's universal ops. Like, I swear, they got beef with every fucking body in this fucking country, bruh. And we learned that Dvalin, the dragon from earlier, basically joined them for some reason, or I guess they were like brainwashed into joining them. I swear they signed that bitch on for at least 30 mil. Changed a broke nigga life, I swear. The Genshin writers, whoever they may be, fail at, while albeit a very difficult task, still a very crucial one, and that is to make your audience give a shit about what's happening in the story. If you fail at this, you kind of fail at the storytelling aspect as well. Not only that, but Jesus Christ, are these stories so fucking tedious. Holy. I think I've genuinely written essays with more enthusiasm than I have in playing a Genshin story. Never mind the tedious nature of how they go about the exposition, which I will show in a second. Not even just the dialogue that I will also show in a second, but even the way that they make you go about interacting with the world when it comes to these stories is so slow and boring. Gun to the back of your head, name 5 Genshin stories that don't involve a character telling you to go push a button or solve a puzzle or talk to a person not even 5 feet away from you instead of just doing it in a cutscene. You're dying, bro. You're literally dying. The biggest offender of this is definitely Liyue. It literally ropes you in with a god dying in front of your eyes only to have you doing fetch quest for the entirety of the plot until the very end. This also brings up something I kind of want to touch on, especially in Genshin's case. I once heard that we often mischaracterize deeper rooted issues as pacing issues. When I say this scene or plot drags, most of you probably assume that I'm talking about the pacing, when in reality it could be a whole slew of other things. Maybe the dialogue kind of talks in circles or isn't as flamboyant as it usually is. Maybe there's something wrong with the conflict within the scene, or maybe the characters are acting out of sync with their usual characterization, making it feel jarring to read through. What I'm trying to get at here is that Genshin Impact often has these deep-rooted issues in its writing, mainly with its characterization and its dialogue. The way Genshin Impact characterizes its characters, especially its women, is, to put it in shorter words, subpar. Most Genshin characters don't have much of a personality outside of their core archetype. And what I mean by that is whatever you imagine when I tell you about a character's archetype, that's most likely what they're going to act like. And honestly, that's about all I have to say on the matter, to be honest. Everything that I've just explained in those past couple of minutes is kind of retreaded territory in terms of Genshin Impact. There's a lot of better videos going into way more depth than I could about this topic, and honestly, I recommend you go watch those. Of course, after you watch this one, of course. After you watch this one, of course. And yes, even while I do despise the Coconut Man, I do believe that his video explaining it is a lot more clear than my scatterbrain ass could ever do it. Dialogue, however, is something I'm a lot more in tune to describing the issues with in terms of Genshin Impact as a whole. As a writer myself, and I'm using that word very loosely, I often find myself struggling balancing the delicate art of dialogue. And with my years of research on dialogue, I've discovered that dialogue is more so an art form rather than something that you can just learn by reading enough books. What the Genshin writers often do is a technique I like to call circling back, a phenomenon that appears in mainly expository dialogue. And to explain what I mean by this, I would need to get a little bit more into the meat and potatoes of what Genshin is as a game. And I don't mean mechanics-wise, I mean really buckle down and explain the lore. Genshin lore is strange in a good way. It can be odd enough to explain why a certain enemy type behaves the way it does, or why an entire nation was just sunk to the bottom of the ocean. Or it can be completely insane, like this woman who cut a giant snake in half so hard it turned her son emo. And yes, I do know I spelled intermission wrong, and I don't care. But that's not what we're here to focus on right now. I'm going to teach you about a little thing called Irminsul. I want you to stop thinking of the world of Teyvat as a simple world like our own. Think of it more like a computer. Now, a computer obviously processes data, and obviously that computer would need to some place to put its data. That's what Irminsul is. If Genshin's world is a computer, then Irminsul is the hard drive. Literally everything that has ever happened in this universe has been documented, recorded, and logged by this computer. Fucking plant computer, somehow. How Irminsul gets this information is what's pretty interesting. With the help of these plant roots called ley lines, it harvests memories from the energies in the world. As long as there was one of these plant roots in an area, Irminsul would have completely recorded and documented it into the timeline of everything that has ever happened in Teyvat ever. Ley lines themselves are even pretty unique from regular plants. They treat memories like nutrients, and they even can grow to much larger lengths than any normal root by just collecting enough memories. Irminsul and its ley lines are actually so powerful that they've managed to, what I can only describe as, deep root themselves into the very reality of Teyvat. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'm gonna give you a short little example. You see, this is Kusanali, the god of Dendro. She's also known as the god of wisdom because her consciousness is directly linked to Irminsul. This also gives her free reign to manipulate and shift Irminsul's information however she sees fit. Now you might be thinking, Spectre, after all of that crazy shit you said Irminsul could do and how important it is to the world of Teyvat, having someone who can manipulate the information inside of it must be really fucking dangerous. Oh, poor viewer. I haven't even told you about the time the gods gave everyone radiation poisoning. By accident and on purpose. Let's say your name is John Smith, and your mother's name is Jane Doe, and your father's name is Billy Bob Joe. You live in a pretty nice village, and you're pretty well respected by mostly everyone. Your father is pretty well respected as well, and he is a construction worker for the local villagers. Now, let's say Kusanali decides to be a dick one day and removes all of the information about your father, Billy Bob Joe, from Irminsul. Now, the next morning, you wake up and you realize that you don't even know what your father looks like. Neither his name or what he does for a living. You go to ask your mother, only to realize that she doesn't remember either. She knows that she married your father, but she doesn't know what he looks like, his name, his hobbies, or what he does for a living. All they know is that she is married to him. Not only that, but your father wakes up, probably in a ditch somewhere, realizing that he also does not know who the hell he is, what he's about, or his hobbies or occupations or what he did to get into that damn ditch. This is permanently everyone's reality for the foreseeable future. There is absolutely nothing you can do to change it back. That is the true power of Irminsul. And I also have just given you an example of why Genshin's expository dialogue is so terrible. Wait, what? You feel like I didn't tell you why it's so terrible? You feel like I did all of that just to pad runtime? And you think I didn't actually make a point and I just did all of that to pad runtime? Well, don't you see, dear viewer? That was the example. Come on, think about it. The constant repeating myself. And honestly, that's about all I have to say on the matter, to be honest. Everything that I've just explained in those past couple of minutes is kind of retreaded territory in terms of Genshin Impact. There's a lot of better videos going into way more depth than I could about this topic, and honestly, I recommend you go watch those. The random addition of information that absolutely no one asked for, and yes, even while I do despise the Coconut Man, I do believe that his video explaining it is a lot more clear than my scatterbrain ass could ever do it. The weird repetition of proper nouns and emphasis on those nouns. Dialogue, however, is something I'm a lot more in tune to describing the issues with in terms of Genshin Impact as a whole. As a writer myself, and I'm using that word very loosely, I often find myself struggling balancing the delicate art of dialogue. And with my years of research on dialogue, I've discovered that dialogue is more so an art form rather than something that you can just learn by reading enough books. What the Genshin writers often do is a technique I like to call circling back, a phenomenon that appears in mainly expository dialogue, and long outstretched detours that feel like they're leading up to a point initially, but end up going nowhere. Then you have to go back and redo all of the stuff that it was supposed to explain to you earlier. Regardless of whether you thought that sequence was entertaining or not, the point was that I was able to doll it up as something that it wasn't. And that's what Genshin storytelling does. Pretending that it is something when in reality, it's just a waste of your time. Once you notice it the first time, you literally can't unsee it ever again. I'm gonna be 100% with y'all right now. The way that I cried tears of joy when in Wuthering Waves, one of the characters called Tacit Discords, one of the main enemy types in the game, a TD, the way that I cried tears of joy would need to be studied. Now, for real this time, that is actually everything that I have to say about Genshin storytelling, at least for right now, until we get on to the second part, which is... Does this finally mean I get to gush about my favorites? Okay, good. Like a lot of gacha games, I stayed in tune with news about it until I started playing it because of the characters and stayed for the lore. You see, gacha games uniquely have to focus a lot more on their character creation aspect because that's how they make their money. And as far as Hoyoverse is concerned, they're pretty good in that aspect. Each character scientifically engineered to make as much money as possible. And if you want my personal opinion, I think they grow that shit in the same lab they grew Bleach characters in. Now we wait for the comments. Yeah, no, seriously, every single Genshin character is designed to just drain your wallet exponentially so. Remember at the beginning of the video when I said I spent over $1,000 across the 3 years I played this game? Yeah. Her, Your Honor. Genshin characters can range from unique and zany to firm and unwavered, but my personal favorite is when they're just fucking boring, man. Just completely fucking boring. As I've already stated, Genshin Impact sucks donkey nuts at characterizing its characters, so we often have to turn to the fandom to fill in the gaps that Genshin Impact couldn't. And this usually manifests as adding a bit of yourself into the character.
You know, you two are the definition of suspicious.
Suspicious!
Or just pretending that they're cooler than they actually are.
You bitch!
Oh, are you mad at me?
Yes, I'm mad at you!
Why?
Because you spilled white out on the paper!
Why'd I do that?
Just leave!
I guess it mostly just depends on your end of the Genshin Impact community political spectrum. Yes, the Genshin Impact community has a political spectrum. I could not be fucked to explain it. The most interesting characters, to me at least, are the mortal gods called the Archons and the Harbingers, which are like this game's like Team Rocket, I suppose. Zhongli and Nahida are definitely my favorite out of the two, and as for the Harbingers, it's gotta be Tartaglia and Scaramouche. But there's one other character who I'm just is like my favorite character in everything ever, is just perfect in every way, no flaws, literally me. I've literally said that I'm like her #1 fan forever, and I think I am like her only fan actually. Chi-Chi, the zombie with short-term memory loss. Holy literally me. Chi-Chi was one of the first characters to ever be released when Genshin came out, so that means she doesn't get a lot of the fanfare that other characters get when it comes to their character trailers. And it's also why she doesn't have a goddamn story quest, even though fucking Lisa has a story quest. Not a hangout event, that's for 4 stars. 5 stars get story quest. Why doesn't Chi-Chi have a fucking story quest, bro? Why does she have a story quest? I hate to throw around the word iconic because people often conflate iconicism with quality, so I try not to say that word too much, but there's literally no other way to describe Chi-Chi in my eyes. I have literally never seen a character quite like Chi-Chi who just fits me so well. I don't care how many more years Hoyoverse exists as a company or how many more games they make or whatever, but there will literally never be another character like Chi-Chi that they will ever make. Even Linne has a story quest. Who the hell wanted Linne's story quest? Like, Chi-Chi is literally my favorite to a point where she was like the topic of the very first video I ever made on this channel, which none of you will ever find because I erased it. It was a really bad video. Am I just cursed to have all of my favorite characters be completely irrelevant to the plot? Let's see, Tartaglia, Chi-Chi, Bailu, I guess that if we're going 3 for 3 on that shit. No, Tony Stell numbers. Yeah, that's about enough gushing about Chi-Chi that I can do in like a single sitting. Actually, honestly, I could probably do it for longer, but then this video would be like 5 hours long, so let's just not do that. As for the more recent characters, I wouldn't have anything to say about them because after Sumeru, I literally didn't keep playing the game. More so out of lack of interest because of how fucking boring the story is. Also for more personal reasons that has to do with why I'm even making this video. When I said to stop thinking of Teyvat as a world like our own, I lied. In fact, it's a lot like our own, in the sense that it pulls from real-world examples of culture and people. Each nation pulling from a different culture. Mondstadt pulls from German culture, Liyue pulls from Chinese culture, Inazuma pulls from Japanese, Sumeru pulls from India, Egypt, and just the general Middle East, Fontaine pulls from French culture, and Notlin pulls from Mesoamerican and African culture. Now the thing with Hoyoverse is that while it's good with using the art, language, and architecture of these cultures, it doesn't properly use the people of these cultures. What do I mean by this? Well, I'm going to let resident co-host and practical second owner of the channel, Eternal Chungass, explain what I mean.
Where do I begin with that? Genshin Impact has been very, very selective when it came to cultures that they wanted to include in their series of cultures they were trying to, include. They referenced a lot of different cultures. They referenced a lot of different real life events, real life places throughout their maps, and so they kind of wanted to save more cultures that have colors like us till last, which was already kind of a flag, but of course we all digress because we were all hoping to get characters that represented us well. And when it came to Sumeru, okay, it's weird that y'all did that, but sure, I guess. And then Natlan came, and Natlan, if y'all don't know, is a representation of Latin American and African culture. So when they release the trailer and the leaks and the characters are light-skinned or white, it made us very, 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 very upset, and for the obvious reasons. The main one being, how are y'all going to take from us and then make us white in the process, instead of making us the colors that is supposed to be what you're representing and what you're taking from? You're stealing from our culture and you're taking it anyway. And what made it worse is I was seeing a lot of Genshin creators, Genshin short creators. I'm not gonna call out names because I don't want to deal with that right now. But they would mention the problem with it. They would mention the issues that was that in that part, that region, and still to this day spend money, still to this day pay for the characters, buy the characters, say, oh my god, the story is great. And that's the biggest issue with Genshin, is that they can do this and get away with it because nobody's going to care. No one's gonna say anything. No one's going to do this. No one's going to do that. No one's going to bother them about it. So they don't have to really do anything, because no one's gonna say anything about it anyway. So what does it matter? And that sucks that it's like that. That sucks that they know they can get away with that type of stuff because no one's gonna bother them about it regardless. And this is my segment. I'm not gonna take up like a whole 15 minutes. I'll probably make my own video on it. I don't know. Yeah.
Anytime the topic of Sumeru or Notlin comes up, I'm often left with the same idea. They'll take your music, they'll take your rhythm, they'll take your flow, they'll take your art, they'll take your architecture, but they will be damned. They will let empires fall before they ever let you join them. The issue was never the fact that they used our culture as a blueprint for one of their fantasy universes. The issue was that they decided to do it and didn't go all the way because they think it'll mess with their profit margins. That's what makes it culture theft. Not the fact that they use it, but because they don't let the people who made it into it. Not only that, but the way that Genshin Impact, or I guess I should say Hoyoverse, treats these minority characters is so fucking weird. Get Dehya, the character who is always referred to as the lioness and is only treated like some sort of animalistic character. Even in her character trailer, she was just referred to as the lion, which isn't that serious, but it gets even worse when you look at other characters who are from the desert region. Let me tell you about a story about an NPC named Jet. The entire story that she's a part of is about her looking for remnants of her old culture, only to find out that the people from her culture are just really evil people for some reason, and she is like told by this racist genie in a bottle that, hey, at least you're not like them, you're one of the good ones. Or even Kaya and Jinyan, characters whose entire character traits are that they're not like everyone else around them. These things are normally excusable by literally any other metric, except for the fact that when you look at Hoyoverse's track record, they don't feel like writing mistakes. Look at their new game, Honkai Star Rail. They have an entire planet inspired by the Jazz Age, only for there to be no black characters that are playable, and even the darkest skin character is really only a one-off antagonist character who isn't really the bad guy, but given Hoyoverse's track record with 4 stars, they're probably never going to be important to the plot ever again. Honkai Impact 3rd fans, y'all not safe either. Let us not forget about Carole Pepper. One of her character traits is that she's insecure about her dark skin because it's not like everyone else's around her. This treatment of darker skinned characters isn't just a Genshin Impact issue, it's a Hoyoverse issue. Now I bet you're wondering, if you knew all of this was going to be an issue when you started playing the game, why did you keep going? It's because I held out hope. I thought that maybe as we went along, the issues would get ironed out and it would eventually get better, which that's partially the truth, but it's definitely not enough. A couple weeks before I started recording this video, I went around gathering data so I knew exactly what talking points I needed before I started making it. And I think it's very telling at the failure of Genshin as a game. When I asked a few people what they thought of the Archon quest, they started telling me about the Archon's story quest, their personal stories. A good percentage of the fanbase don't even know that the main storyline of Genshin Impact is called the Archon quest. Too little, too late is the only thing that I can describe Fontaine and Notlen. Disappointing is what I'd call Genshin Impact. So, yeah, that is pretty much everything that I have to say about Genshin Impact. Honestly, there probably could have been more, but that would be getting more into the community rather than the actual game, and I was just here to focus on the game and its company. As of the time you finish watching this video, I'll probably be deciding when to go and live on Twitch, where I'll be streaming Pokemon Fire Red in its entirety. So if you want to go see that, then I suggest you go follow my Twitch. Thank you very much. Oh, and follow my Twitter and my TikTok too. That'd be really nice for you to do. So thank you for watching. Honestly, I really do appreciate you just listening to my fucking rambling for a good, what is it now? About 30, almost 30 minutes as of the recording of these lines. Yeah, honestly, I can't thank you enough for just sitting through me on this. So yeah. Have a good day, y'all.